companies that obviously are interested in what the future holds. Why are some more myopic than others?
Pre 2020, you try and introduce like a new way of thinking, and it's like the system just rejects it in a pretty like significant way, because it wasn't designed to bring in variability. It wasn't designed to look for new and innovation. It wasn't designed to test and to try and iteratively build. Like none of these practices were in any way built into a Six Sigma, efficiency driven organization.
So you think there may have been a shift because I assume because of COVID?
Well, because I think that so many of the things that people like me have been preaching for a long time. I've looked at the list of other people that you've interviewed, and David Orban and Dan Kraft and Amber Case. I mean, these are amazing people who have been talking about this stuff for a long time. And we're always told, I was told, too expensive, too disruptive, too impractical, like it just could never happen. And so when the world was suddenly thrust into it, and all the things that they thought were impractical or not possible now became the survival things, right? Or the things that were considered cannibalistic now literally became the only way to be able to conduct business. And suddenly, aperture opens. What's interesting though, they became aware of some things and are trying to figure out how to put it back into its old model, and trying to figure out how these new awakenings shift, or they can, sort of reel them back in, or sort of put them back to a place that's familiar. And that is not the opportunity.
Well, let's bring it to life a little bit. So I assume what you're talking about, for example, is, we need workers to come in 9 to 5 to physical spaces, or, we need to have, in-person meetings for such and such. Now, obviously that has not been, you haven't been able to do that. And so to keep going, or we have to shift from physical retail to completely online for a period.
But even, I'll just back up on the worker thing. It's actually, I think, more insidious than that, because rather than just saying we need to have people back, because why do we want people back? So that we can make sure that they're getting their work done, right? We can ensure productivity. And in the lieu of being able to do that, we're going to do a lot of surveillance things. We're going to put a bunch of software on people's computers now where we can surveil them and make sure that they're really working as hard as we want them to. Like, that's the scary part of it. It's like taking that, what I call a 20th century mindset, and putting it into 21st century tools. Right? When we have the ability to do those kinds of things, it's actually worse.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I hadn't even thought of that particular, I hadn't thought of it in that setting. And look, quite frankly, being on both sides of it, not run a big corporation, but try and run some very, very small, tiny corporation, is that you let people go and work at home and so on, especially at times where there is no work. And what are they doing? You're paying them and so on. So what is the balance? I mean, look, these are ethical, we're not even getting into the bioethical right now. We're getting into sort of contemporaneous ethical situations. You want people to be safe, to be efficient, to work, and you want to trust them. And at the same time, some people don't actually do the work.
Well, and so here's, do we want them to be efficient, or do we want them to be innovative, right? Do we want
I guess it depends. I personally don't, and I spoke to David Orban about this, don't necessarily believe that everybody's an entrepreneur. I don't. I think there are some people who like to be, I'm getting my 9 to 5, and we're not talking about the future of jobs as a totality, but in the now, I don't know that everybody's an entrepreneur and everybody shouldn't go to college. I don't personally.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that even if you're in a business process role, you still need to be innovative, right? New tools are coming in, new ways of doing things, being able to respond. I'm just telling you, one of the most places where that needs one of the biggest overhauls is in purchasing. What is it called? Procurement, right? Like that's a very, what you would argue, kind of straightforward, kind of, prescribed task. And yet there's a ton of innovation when you start to think about the fact that we're going to be buying software services that are learning all the time, right? And people want to have predicted outcomes when we don't know what the predicted outcome is, or predicted timeline when we don't know what the predicted timeline is, or you're going to be working with more collaborative people who owns the IP. I mean, every single function, Johnny, is going to have to be sort of rethought. And so as we're in that place, we do want to breed that there's a certain level of expectation for creative thinking and innovative thinking and curiosity. Learn, like, in downtime, learn.
I completely agree with this. I mean, you have to, I think in order to retain workers, and even the way one thinks of work, and we could get into all sorts of probably digressions about universal basic income and what it means to work and the value of work and so on and so forth. We could go down all these rabbit holes. But I mean, practically speaking, we want our workers to have all of these things and be efficient and it to be symbiotic holistic even. We can throw out all these words. But at the end of the day, we also want to ensure that they're actually doing what they're supposed to be doing in this
Okay,
new
but
year
again,
of.
there's a way of
So,
designing that. So I'm just going to say, first I'll make the distinction between the future of work and the future of working. So what you're talking about when you talk about UBI and the roles that we have on the planet and the way that we express our unique value and talents is the future of work. And that is a huge conversation that very, very few people are thinking about. They're only thinking about it through the UBI lens, but there's way bigger stuff to think about or additional stuff to think about. But the future of working, which is how do we work, right? When we are paid and using our energy in that way, how do we do it? And if you look at a company like Siemens, they've got 380,000 employees and they've decided that anybody can work from home. I think that it's not necessarily work from anywhere. So I don't know if you can work from Bali. Like I think there might be like 2 days a week that you go to some sort of place that you coordinate with others. So that what we're thinking is much more fluid around this, right? I call it status fluid, but much more dynamic, much more fluid, much more hybrid. It doesn't have to be sort of one way or another. But companies that have a really clear purpose are better enabled to go do this because everybody understands what they're working toward. A company, all that work that we've done around corporate culture and values, this is where it becomes really handy. What we found is companies that have, or I haven't found this, like Adam Grant from Harvard found that companies that have strong ties, meaning that they really do have strong values and strong communication already built into the organization, are actually doing really well in this remote work world and being able to pivot really quickly. And companies that didn't have strong ties are becoming much more fiefdoms and siloed and, hoarding information, and it's not going super well. So there's not one blanket solution to all of this. It's how you actually, again, weave, right? Culture and technology and purpose and expectation and workflow and the tools that help navigate all that in really much more robust and confident ways. But I do think that purpose and profit can exist together. I just wrote a thing about Milton Friedman's 50th anniversary. And, there's some parts of him I agreed with. Like I agree that companies should not be philanthropic entities in which they just extract a whole bunch of value and then take a little bit and transfer it over there to try and solve a problem that really has nothing to do with their business model because it makes them feel good. Good old CSR, right? He was not an advocate of it, and I'm actually not an advocate of it. But I am really an advocate of the fact that if every single choice that a business makes is designed to be able to add value to the overall, group of stakeholders, which includes employees and community and partners and investors, then you actually make really good decisions, right? And you do actually build really strong companies that can be both profitable and add value to the planet.